You're listening to Entrepreneur's Enigma, a podcast about the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial journey. Every week, your host Seth Goldstein interviews entrepreneurs from all walks of life about their entrepreneurial journeys. From store owners to Fortune 500 CEOs, we all have stories to tell. So sit back and join us for the next 20 or so minutes while we explore the entrepreneurial world.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. I'm your host as always, Seth. Today I have a good buddy of mine who I met on a Lineable, and then we've crossed paths here and there and all that good stuff throughout. Todd Mitchell, who is literally, he's a sweet guy, but he could hack the heck out of you if you was crossing the wrong way. More on that. He is the owner of Cybersecurity4biz LLC, which is a disabled veterans-owned small business. And he's a retired U.S. Navy veteran, so thank you for your service. But he has more than 30 years of experience in this field. He's got a master's in cybersecurity policy, an MBA, and several IT degrees. And here's where you don't want to take him off, and certificates in ethical hacking. So he'll hack you ethically, because he'll tell you about that he hacked you, kind of thing. So he's worked for the departments of everything in the government. We're just gonna leave it that way, because if I told you where he worked, he'd have to kill me. No, probably not. But he's worked for the Defense Department and other stuff. He realized he wanted to help out the small people when his friend's small business suffered a data loss. Who was a DJ and got hacked and lost all his freaking music. I mean, that's pretty bad. That's a shame. So he understands that most small businesses can't afford or don't need enterprise level, IT. They just need a guy that could say, "My mouse isn't working." He's like, "Did you restart your computer?" He does more than that, but there's a lot of times I found, like when I help my parents out, it's the stupid stuff. But a lot of some people don't have parents or have kids that are tech savvy enough to do that. So that's where Todd comes in. He helps the small businesses out there, help the little guys. So he was running his own business from home, so he can keep the prices low. He doesn't have to pay for the whole office space and all that stuff. And honestly, you're all cyber, so it's like you can go in and fix things, which is great. And so Todd practices what he preaches, securing his home and network, and safeguarding the client's data amid the chaos of family and IoT devices. Oh, no, amid a chaos of the family of IoT devices. There we go. Anyhow, Todd, how's it going, big guy? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
How's the weather in New Mexico? You're out by Roswell, right?
Actually, I'm in Alamogordo, which is about an hour and a half north of El Paso. So I'm kind of like dead in the middle of the state and all the way down on the southern border.
Ooh. How's the weather? I mean, so you're up high or you're down low? Because I know it's either you're really high up and you can't breathe, or you're really down low and it's...
That kind of depends on where your frame of reference is for where you live. I'm actually what we call the desert lowland, but we're sitting at 4,500 feet. It's just in a valley between two other mountains, so it's still pretty high up.
You're a lowlander who's not quite a lowlander. Because this came from a guy from Philadelphia who is like literally almost like, it's like I'm like 300 feet above sea level. So
yeah, I used to live in Florida, and I actually had to have my front yard raised up. Our whole yard. They had to bring in like 5 feet of fill dirt so that we were 8 feet above sea level, because the land was only 3 feet above sea level.
Oh man, so you've been all over the place. You're a veteran. You've worked. So you're a Navy guy. How many years did you do? Do you have the RET after your name?
Yep. 20 years in the Navy, and then retired, and then...
So 20 years? What was that, 20 years you said?
Yeah, 20 years in the Navy, and then after I retired, I went and worked for the Marine Corps for another 10 years, developing software and doing cybersecurity. Yep.
I'm sure that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Somebody came up with a great idea of all these, the way the government does business is you make a specific set of software that only works on a certain computer. So you know, kind of like you see in the movies with like NASA Space Control, and there's like 50 different people on computers, and none of them, you know, and then they take turns showing the stuff up on the big screen for the boss. And somebody finally, one of the bigwigs in the Pentagon was like, can't we get all this crap on the same map? You know, and
well, like one department talking to another department doesn't happen in the government either. So it's like,
so that was my job, was to find a way to integrate all the data and get it all to show up in the same place at the same time. And
you would think our government would know how to do that.
No, not even. I mean, well, just think about this. How many times do you go into a government agency, or I'm thinking DMV is one perfect example, and they punch into some screen your name, address, stuff, and then they go to another screen and they got to ask you your name and address all over again because the
systems don't talk to each other.
And that's the thing, is we were trying to get all that stuff to be just there and available.
Did you get there, or is it classified?
No, we did it. I was on a project for 5 years and completely renovated. 5 years of software development and completely renovated.
Connecting the dots before Zapier, right?
Yeah.
Now Zapier is just like you click and drag, like have this thing talk to this thing.
Yeah, but this was all, I was doing it for command and control of the battlefield, so all the software, the software is secret, the people using it are secret, all the information's top secret, so it was, that's where I got into cybersecurity so much, because it was, you know, everything.
We're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show. Everything was secret.
Yep.
Yeah. So you worked for the Marine Corps for a bunch of years. Almost got an RT designation on the civilian side because you worked there for 10 years. What made you? I mean, I know your friend lost all his music.
Yeah. So basically, what happened was when he got a ransomware attack and he lost all his music, and he's a DJ, so a DJ with no music's kind of useless. So he's panicking. He calls me up and he's like, "Hey, you got to find somebody to help me." We started calling all these businesses. I mean, we hit Google and we were like 10 pages deep on a Google search before we finally found a business that didn't say they only worked with larger enterprise. All the commercials you see on TV for like CrowdStrike and IBM's Watson and Verizon,
DJ can't afford that shit.
Those guys only want to deal with you if you got 10,000 employees or more. So we finally found one that said small business, and I call them up and they're like, "Yeah, we love small business. You got to have 250 employees, 10 million in revenue, 5 guys in your IT department." It's like, that is not a small business.
That's a small mid-sized business.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if I got 250 employees and 10 million in revenue, I'm sitting on a beach drinking margaritas. I ain't worried about nothing. Let somebody else do it.
Yeah, that's a little mid-sized business.
I ended up helping him myself in my spare time, for free. And he brought a couple other people to me, and I helped them. And then he finally convinced me to open my own business. So I jumped headfirst from the corporate world into being a business owner. And I came into it with a real mission-oriented of being the little guy, helping the little guy, because nobody else would do it, basically.
So you found
because a lot of the laws. I mean, I'm all about protecting customers, helping you protect your customers' information, and the laws don't change. It doesn't matter if you're the president of TurboTax or if you're a housewife doing taxes as a side hustle for a couple of months to pay off your Christmas debt. It's the same rule on how you have to protect people's social security numbers and all that kind of stuff. And
even though most of that stuff's out there already. It's like,
well, but you don't want to be the one caught holding the bag when there's a data breach and it was, end up being your fault. So you got to do everything you can to prevent it. So you can, when you're in court and the judge says, "What'd you do to prevent this?" You don't just sit there going, I
didn't do anything. And so you work both in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, pretty much my own.
Not Europe. You don't mess with Europe.
I could. I mean, as long as we can communicate, if they speak English or whatever, I could work anywhere.
That's pretty wild, man. So how long have you been on your own for now?
5 years.
Wow, so you made it past the 5-year mark. Or you're in the 5-year mark. That's awesome.
And I'm still my business is on that upward trajectory, so I'm still doing good. Yep.
That's good. That's good. I mean, so what is it in your mind is the best thing about being an entrepreneur versus, you kind of get to run amok around the government. It's kind of fun, but what is the best thing about being an entrepreneur in your mind? Especially since you kind of went into it, and it was what is this?
I think the biggest benefit to me is flexibility of my calendar.
Because you have kids, right?
My long-term goal is to retire into an RV and just be a full-time RVer driving around and, migrate like a bird. When it gets hot, I start heading south. When it gets cold, I start heading north. And
vice versa, unless you want to go that way.
Yeah.
You want to go south when it's cold.
Well, yeah.
That's what I meant. My mom is a reverse snowbird. When it snows, she goes north.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm
making
avoid
sure,
the cold.
because sometimes it is that way. So.
Yeah, no, I'm avoiding the cold.
You're going the exact opposite.
Yep.
You're going down to Mexico.
Yep. And having this job, having my own business, and being internet-based, working remote, I pretty much can work anywhere I can get an internet connection. So now that allows me to. I'm not full-time, but I do extended. I take a month off, and well, not really off, but I'll go traveling for a month and still can keep my work schedule going.
You connect to Starlink or whatever and jump in real fast. That's what I do.
Yep.
When I take a vacation, I bring my computer with me. I'm not done, but I just take a little bit of a break.
Right. Yep.
And you have kids, right? So you can deal with your kids.
Actually, I've got grandkids now. My daughter's 34. I've got a 8-year-old
grandson. You look damn good for having grandkids.
Yeah.
I mean, you put your years in, so now you get to spoil them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've earned the right to have an RV now. Yeah. You've put your dues in, government-wise and family-wise. You're like, all right, I want that RV.
Yep. Well, and for me, it was I've seen the world. I've been to 36 different countries. I've lived in Italy for 4 years, seen all of Europe. And now it's time to see America. So I'm going to drive around. We're on a goal to hit all the national parks.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yep.
And you can do as long as there's internet connection, you can keep it going.
Yep.
I love that, man. So what keeps you up at night as an entrepreneur? I mean, because
I'd say.
Or do you sleep like a baby?
Yeah, I kind of do, because I don't really worry about stuff when I'm sleeping. That's a military thing. You sleep when you can sleep, But I would say the thing that guides me, the lack of awareness of people for basic cybersecurity things that they could be doing. Strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, doing backups, stuff like that, right? And the reason why I say, and how to recognize a phishing attack. 92%.
And those are getting harder and harder now.
And AI is making that worse because they get more realistic looking. But, you have to just use some common sense. When you get an email from PayPal saying, here's a receipt, it's like, wait a minute, I don't use PayPal to pay for anything. Why do they got a receipt? So don't click on that thing and open it. Yeah, the request for
money ones. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. No,
but
delete.
But those types of things, if we can recognize how, because a lot of it, think about this. You teach every kid to look both ways before they cross the street when they're like 3 or 4 years old.
Exactly.
But then, and I laugh about this. You got the helicopter moms that go out to the bus stop and wait for their kid and walk them back home because they won't let them walk down 200 feet down the road. But then as soon as they get in the house, they hand them an iPad and say, here, play on the internet while I go cook dinner. And nowadays, you can get more trouble on the internet than you can in your front yard. So, we just have to redo our thinking. My grandson's a perfect example. He's in virtual school for 3 of the 4 years of schooling he's had so far have been in virtual. So he basically spends 40 hours a week in front of a computer, but nobody's ever taught him how to use it responsibly and how to protect his data or not to share his password
his grandpa.
and things
You
like
gotta
that.
Get on that, buddy.
So, yep.
You gotta get on that because it's what's kind of funny is now Shop is getting hacked right now as we speak. Have you noticed? Have you seen that? Like it's now March 12th, and this is gonna come out in April. But like as of right now, I've gotten invoices that I have not paid for, but they're attached to my email address saying that I paid for an area rug, and I'm like, no. Because what you do is you get the receipt, you look at that, you go to your credit card statement. If it's not in your credit card statement, then there's something fishy there.
Right.
So their app is getting hacked right now.
Yeah.
You can and there's certain things like if people are like, oh my God, I'm like looking at this, I'm like, all right, honestly, you tell the credit card company, like, none of this adds up, and the credit card company's like, all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, because it's what it is just it's spoofing. They're sending you a fake credit card statement, hoping to rile you up, so you call them up, and then you got to give them your account number and your password and all that, so they
And your
can verify
two-factor.
stuff.
That's always a good one. It's like, can I please have your two-factor code?
Yeah.
No.
They call it social engineering, and the whole point behind social engineering is I don't need to, Hollywood does us a big injustice because everybody thinks there's some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement hacking away on a keyboard, and that's how you get
it's
hacked.
like people in call center in India.
And nowadays you don't need to do that. You don't need to write code to hack into your computer. I can just take a look, those little fun quizzes you do on Facebook where you tell them your first girlfriend's name and your mom's middle name and what year you bought your first car or where you got married.
Yeah, see, I lucked out with that because my mom's main name is her current name, and so I can never use that as a second factor or as a password reset because I'm like, she still uses it.
But
Thanks,
those quizzes I'm talking about, like the quizzes on Facebook, those are the same questions that you answered for your security questions for your bank account. So all I got to do is figure out what bank you're in and hit forgot password, and I got all the questions off of your Facebook, and
so what I do for that, Todd, you'll be proud of me. I make up fake questions and I write them down in my password safe of like what the security question was and what I answered.
Yep. That's a good way to do it.
As long as you remember what they are, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, a friend of mine
used to fun with those.
His answer to everything was Bob.
Bob.
Who's your first car? Bob.
Well, it could have been a car.
What's your best friend's name? Bob.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it doesn't matter what the answer is as long as you can remember to type it in the right way the next time.
Yeah,
but,
you always have a good laugh if someone's like, "Well, please tell me your mother's maiden name." Rutabaga. Really?
Yeah.
Type it in; it'll work.
Yeah. And that's one of my things is I like to promote awareness because I think I've got some knowledge and I think about these things that a lot of people don't think about, and it's like it is a lot of it's in my mind most of it's just common sense. It's just making people think about some of these things. It's that think before you click button.
Think before you click, absolutely. So what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
The most important thing to carry with me all the time
besides your RV keys.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, for me it's extra camping gear. No, I carry my phone. I guess I could not live without my phone.
Especially you, because then that's your internet connection to your computer if you need it when you're on the road. Like seriously, most people have my phone. I'm like, that's not a good answer.
That and I use it for communication. I'm not a big. I am a big gamer, but I don't do any of that stuff on my phone. For mine, it's just I've got 3 different email accounts and text messages and 2 different texting and all that. So my phone.
People they get in touch with you. Exactly. Like
I
didn't think before I clicked, Todd. Now what?
Well, and that's it. I work on the prevention side, so I'm trying to get everybody safe so that they don't have to get hacked. But it happens, and I got to be available when clients call me and say, hey, I'm seeing this. What do I do? And
What do you do? You're like, don't do that again.
Right.
Please don't do it again. So, Todd, where can people find you online? Where's your biggest watering hole?
Alignable, definitely. I'm 100% alignable. That's pretty much. I've got some other social media accounts, but quite honestly, I'd never get on them.
You live on Alignable because you do a lot of seminars on Alignable. You run a bunch of groups on Alignable. You're an ambassador on Alignable. You kind of live, speak, and eat and breathe Alignable, which is really
I've got a local networking group that has 2 different meeting places in person, and then I've got 2 other groups that I'm leader of. So I'm doing Smart Connects like once a week.
You're insane. You're more insane than I am. So that's something. You also worked in the Navy, and you worked with a bunch of jarheads. So
So that's the whole thing right there. Is after you spend, and when I was in the Navy, I was on amphibious assault ships working with Marines the whole time too. So I've spent 30 years working. So we're not quite right in the head anyways.
For that,
when people start shooting and you see the guys that are running towards the bullets instead of away from them, we're not quite right.
You're like, get off the boat so I can get the hell out of here.
Yep.
Oh man, Todd. All right, so we'll have all your links in the show notes. And thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your civilian service afterwards because you kind of stuck around for a little while. And thank you for your service to all of us small fries out there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I loved it.
Awesome. And we'll see everyone next week.
That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneur's Enigma, please consider giving us a review in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps us reach new listeners. If you like Entrepreneur's Enigma, consider the other shows on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net.
Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode.